Is it a trick or is it a treat? Is it a trick or is it a treat? Good morning, everybody. It's time for Morning Manna, and I certainly have a word for you on today. Yeah, better late than never. Everybody can have some technical problems sometimes. I hope you're hanging there with me, but I'm live right now. And the whole thing is it a trick or is it a treat? Is it a trick or is it a treat? Today is Halloween, and I want to deal with the realness of Halloween. The realness of Halloween. Is it a trick or a treat? You know, I'm going to talk about the text to talk takeaway, 5 minutes or less. But before I get into that, I want to greet some folk that hung in there with me. Yep. Got a little late, but sometimes you have technical problems and you got to deal with them and work your way through and all of that. So that's what happened on this morning, but we are here. We are here, and I got a word for you right now. Before I get into that, let's greet some people. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Erica, how are you on this morning? Vicky, how are you on this morning? Deacon Joe, how are you on this morning? Pamela, how are you? Dawn, how are you? Brother Nesbitt, how are you? Joyelle, how are you? Lena, how are you? Elder Mobley, how are you doing on this morning? Francine, how you doing on this morning? Anna, how are you? Elder Jan, how are you? Is it a trick or is it a treat? Is it a trick or is it a treat? That's what we're dealing with on this morning, because this morning we want to really get into this whole thing about Halloween. Halloween versus a harvest. How about that? Halloween versus a harvest. And let me just give us some things as before we get going into it, really what Halloween is about. Let me give you some facts and then we're going to give you the text to talk into text. Oh, how about this? I'm going to just give you the text right now. I want you to look at Ephesians 5:11. Take no part in the unfruitful works of darkness, but instead expose them. Take no part in the unfruitful works of darkness, but instead expose them. A common translation of that to help us on this morning. And know this, that Halloween may it look harmless, but it can be quite harmful. Let me give you some backstory, if you will. Let me give you some backstory, some things. Beneath the costumes and the candy, there's a whole thing about darkness. And it always just like takes me back that I can see people who are inviting darkness into their homes, inviting darkness into their lives. The whole piece is this. It's the roots in ancient Celtic festival of the Samhain, Samhain. It's an ancient Celtic festival. Now, this pagan festival is where people believe the boundary between the living and the dead was blurred. The boundary between the living and the dead was blurred. I want you to get that. Now, today, it is one of the most successful holidays in America. It is one of the most successful commercially driven holidays in America. I want you to notice, what do you mean by that, Bishop? What I mean is, it's not a holiday that is per se we are all off, a government holiday, but it is driven by the culture and commercialism who could care less about the spiritual aspects of what it is driving home. It's going to be a little long. I want you to get this in context. They could care less about that. Now, what is some of the biblical basis of this? Do you remember in Samuel when Saul was losing his throne to David, and he goes to seek from the spiritual realm, the spirit realm, guidance, disguises himself. Wow, you remember. He disguises himself because he doesn't want anybody to know, and he goes seeks out a witch. The witch, the witch conjures up the spiritual realm, and Samuel comes and says, "Don't talk to me. I can't tell you what to do at this point." Then it is disclosed that, in fact, that this is Saul in the spiritual realm. So that tells you right there that this pagan holiday that the Celtic community brings up out of Scotland and so on and so forth is a real thing. It's a real thing. That line between the spiritual realm of life and death and the death realm, if you will, is a real thing. Now, the text tells us, take no part in unfruitful works of the darkness, but instead expose it. Common English version. So, what do we do with this? What do we do with this? Let me give you three things. First thing, you need to protect your peace. You don't invite things that is going to disturb your peace into your peace. So the whole thing about going around and dressing up and oh, you're going to give me a treat or you're going to trick me was dependent upon just how well you are dressed, and I'm going to give you this or that. I hope I'm helping you this morning. Now, there's a big difference between that and just having some fun and a harvest and celebrating the harvest of the year instead of the Halloween of the year. So when you start seeing all of this around and you have to protect your peace by not inviting this into your life. Second thing is that push back on the darkness, push back on the fear, push back on the fear. I want you to grab this now. I'm an OG, proud OG. You know, look at the gray in my beard. But guess what? I remember when the movies that were so frightful to us was Frankenstein, Dracula, and the werewolf. Some of y'all have no clue what I'm talking about right now. Okay. But here we were, children, watching this, seemingly, oh, no big deal. But to this day, what it did was open up doors of fear. To this day, I look at the full moon and where's the werewolf? I know better now, but it opened up a door. It opened up a door. So you got to push back on that. It opened up a door of fear. He's not giving us a spirit of fear, but of love and of power and a sound mind. And so when we take little kids, oh yeah, I see Brother Nesbitt said, and the mummy. Yeah, the mummy. Don't let's not forget the mummy. And those were the fearful things or the movies that brought about fear, that opened up that door of fear. If you're not careful, the same thing now. And all you do is this time of the year, you see all kinds of movies that we invite our children into that they should have no business watching or entering in because it opens up a door of fear. So you got to push back on that darkness. You got to protect your peace. And here's the third thing you got to do. You got to pursue the purity of Christ. You got to pursue the purity of Jesus Christ. This is a time in which we can invite people to say, okay, come to my church. Come where we can then invite your children to a safe place where we're not blurring the lines between the dark world and the world that the Lord has given us to live in. We're not blurring the line between life and death. We're not doing that at all. We're just celebrating the harvest of the Lord. the harvest of the Lord. So, what's your takeaway this morning? It's a little long, but I meant for it to be long because we need to put some boundaries around this whole celebration of death and darkness that we invite all the way down to decorating our houses. I cannot believe it when I drive through my neighborhood. The decorations are just out of this world. What's the takeaway? The takeaway is this: pursue the holiness of God and not the hollowness of the enemy. The holiness of God and not the hollowness of the enemy. Because he will keep you in a space, in a place of fear. The Lord be with you today. May his face shine upon you and give you peace. Share this, man. If it bless you, bless somebody else. Don't keep it to yourself. Bye now.